The 80s had the General. The 90s had John Gilligan. In the noughties, it was the reign of Martin Marlowe Hyland. His was a familiar path with success and power, and then the recklessness. He had to go, because with him, an innocent young man doing an honest day's work died. Crime World presents Caught in the Crossfire, the unsolved murders of coke kingpin Marlowe Hyland and innocent Anthony Campbell. Available now on all podcast platforms. You know, you have to consider a few things with this story. Firstly, it was the Sicilians and I suppose ultimately the Italians who came up with that whole omerta. So it's the Italian member of the European Super Cartel who's broken it. And, you know, he was returned to Italy. We know he was cooperating with the authorities there because he was being signed on essentially their witness protection program as a state witness. But it seems he has been, in gangland terms, ratting away about quite a few people.
Yeah, I mean, he's a transnational rat, you might say, you know.
We don't agree with that word.
No, we don't. But it is
more professional here. I think the word is witness.
Yeah, because he's not, obviously Raffaele Imperiale was one of the biggest drug traffickers into Europe, you know, in the last decade, if not longer. And he was extradited back from Dubai in 2022 to face justice in Italy. So he's not just informed in Italy, and we've had some of the details of what he has said about the people he was dealing with, his conspirators in Italy. But now he's obviously given details about Dutch criminals as well.
And yeah, and that, you know, there's so many connections with him. Now, he was returned to Italy from Dubai. You know, there's questions why some are returned, why some aren't. He had been sentenced in his absence. So the Italian authorities were actually going to the Emirates with, you know, this guy should be in jail at the moment.
Yeah.
So that's why he was returned so smoothly, I suppose. But he has started out his criminal career in the coffee shops of Amsterdam, which is how he sort of embedded himself within the Dutch, Moroccan mafias that were emerging from...
Yeah, like it's just amazing, like, because obviously there's this statement in one of the Dutch media, and Het Parool, it's called, I'll probably pronounce it, no, Het Parool.
I'm going to ring a Dutch friend and ask them how wrong you are on a scale of 1 to 10.
So nobody's perfect, but so I mean, and these statements have been leaked, and you can just see the same names that have been first in the Sunday World 20 years ago. People like Ming Kok as an associate of Christy Kinahan. I mean, it's actually a small number of people, and they've moved from Amsterdam to Spain and then to Dubai, and so there's been leaks in various newspapers in Holland. And there is even a mention of Daniel Kinahan for the first time in the statements made by Raffaele Imperiale, because what we heard in Italy only really related to Italian criminals. What you're hearing in the Dutch media is generally related to people based in that part of the world. But there is a mention of Daniel Kinahan, and it says at one point there was a discussion of a murder, and that murder didn't go ahead because Daniel Kinahan wouldn't be happy with anything happening in Dubai. So that's the first mention. It's on a website called Crime Site. And
that's relating to activities of the Camorra Mafia, headed up at this point by Ridwan Taghi, serving a life term in prison for a number of gangland murders in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
The same guy who has sort of waged war on democracy in the Netherlands and who's believed to be behind, or certainly his gang is believed to be behind the murder of a journalist and a criminal lawyer and the brother of a state witness.
Yeah, so what you're seeing in this, in these leaked documents, it's basically Imperiale's comments on a case investigating El Rico. Mm-hmm. So El Rico was a Dutch criminal
with Chilean background. His parents had come to the Netherlands from Chile.
Yeah.
And El Rico means the rich one.
The rich one, and his name is Richard Riquelme Vega. So he became one of the primary drug traffickers into Europe. He was also extradited back to Holland, and you know he's continues to be investigated by Dutch officials, and they've obviously asked for Raffaele Imperiale to give evidence as part of that. And he's given evidence, he's given a statement about his dealings with El Rico. El Rico was, again, one of the Daniel Kinahan's key suppliers. It is
And a
believed.
wedding guest.
And a wedding guest, as was Imperiale. So Imperiale is given like a long debrief about really what happened was where there was an old guard of drug dealers in Amsterdam that had grown up in the 90s that were associates of Christy Kinahan Sr., like Ming Kok, and sometime in or around 2010, a new generation had come up associated with people like Taji, and tensions had developed. El Rico seems to have been in the middle, dealing with all sides, as is Imperiale, and he says, we're translating it through Google, but it's basically, I was playing both sides of the team. El Rico was a younger guy. He was in his 40s, the same sort of age as Taji and Kinahan and Imperiale. And sometime he had served time in Germany for drug offences. He had come out and he'd become deeply embedded with the Colombian cartels through his contacts in that part of the world. Set up a number of front companies. He seems to have been able to buy directly from the Colombian cartels and then taken charge of the logistics of moving that drug shipments into Europe. At some point, he was dealing with Ming Kok, but there had become a dispute. I think the figure is given, it's, a huge amount of money, 53 million, I think it is, 52 million. Ming Kok had claimed that El Rico owed him 52 million.
Okay.
And Ming Kok, of course, was one of these old school veteran criminals who'd been based in the Lebanon ultimately. And he'd been picked up in the Lebanon, arrested. He ultimately was convicted over there for drugs trafficking offences. Somewhere, like always happens with these things, isn't it? Yeah. Somebody owes somebody money.
Always.
Presumably, some amount of drugs is seized somewhere, and neither party want to take responsibility for that massive loss. So Ming Kok claims El Rico owes him this money. And the fallout from that is over the next couple of years, there's a number of murders. Some of them in Spain. A guy, can you pronounce it?
Yeah, well, I'll try. It's because it's a Moroccan guy called Samir Boukhouran. And he's called Scarface, and he's murdered he's sitting outside a restaurant in Benahavas up in the hills overlooking the Costa. He is sitting with Nawaf Fassi, also known as Mr. Couscous in the Belly and various other names, a guy who is later arrested in a Kinahan safe house in Dublin and wanted in the Netherlands and returned by military aircraft to the Netherlands after a plot by your pal El Rico to try and bust him out of Portlaoise prison was uncovered. But back to Spain, Nawaf Fassi is sitting beside Samir Boukhouran, who is essentially his boss.
Yeah.
And they're sitting, it's kind of dark. They're drinking their drinks, they're having a puff, and he puts his arm around Samir Boukhouran and a gunman comes out of the darkness and he's dead. Yeah. And it was always seen that was the sign.
This is our man.
It was also, connecting the dots even more, always said that from underworld sources would have suggested that it was the Kinahans who supplied that gunman that came out of the shadows that night.
So this is the core of this dispute, which is basically at some point all of these guys are working together. They're not maybe part of a sort of a tight-knit hierarchical organisation.
It's an implosion though, isn't it? It's similar to the Kinahan situation.
Exactly.
And similar timing.
Similar timing. And it's similar in that there's a generation that it splits an organisation that previously worked together. So what the Dutch police are obviously questioning Imperiale about is what role El Rico had in these murders. El Rico is currently serving a 11-year sentence for, playing a role in an assassination plots. So basically what El Rico is accused of, or what the Dutch police are questioning him about, is that murder, and then another murder of a guy that disappeared, basically, a guy known as Ziggy. And this is all the fallout that is being discussed.
And Ziggy would have been that guy Scarface's contemporary and cohort.
Yes.
So interesting on El Rico, because there was a disappointment when he was brought before the courts in the Netherlands that they didn't get that larger murder charge, which they got against Taggy, ultimately.
So they got an El Rico.
That's a 23 to 28 year sentence there, and El Rico is looking at getting out in the next few years, which they don't want, essentially. So they had always sort of believed that they could possibly go for him again through the courts, and maybe if they can link him to a murder, he'll be spending a lot longer in prison.
Yeah. So, I mean, what the suspicion is that Scarface was involved in a plot to facilitate the murder of El Rico on behalf of Mincock and another criminal that's just named as British Billy in the leaked documents.
Right.
That this money was owed, that Scarface planned to, or at least facilitate, maybe set him up, provide whatever support that is needed. And the Dutch police are asking, did El Rico get in there first, basically? And that sparked a wave of killings, including an innocent woman being killed that occurred over between Holland and in Spain. Now, Imperiale, he gives a very, again, like with these guys, when they do speak, as we've seen in Ireland, they tend to be really, really self-serving in their pronouncements, because during the El Rico trial, there was discussion, there was texts, basically, encrypted texts were played out in court where there was discussion of bringing ninjas into Dubai.
Yeah.
And obviously ninjas, which Imperiale also accepts even, that's a reference, a Colombian word he describes to use for hitmen. And the plan was to, or at least there was discussion going on to kill the brother of Scarface, who was living in Dubai at that time. It was part of the court case that El Rico and Imperiale were swapping texts about bringing ninjas into Dubai. Bizarre.
Is this what Daniel Kinahan, in this statement from Raffaele that we're talking about, that he puts the kibosh on because he says he doesn't want this happening in Dubai?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and Imperiale, it's really bizarre. He says, he basically he uses the Jonathan Dowdall defense, which is, it was all just big talk.
Oh, right, okay.
And that is basically what he says. It's just, they were just talking.
They weren't really going to do that.
They weren't really going to do it. It was just acting the hard man and being tough, and we're going to hire this person and that. But he wasn't actually going to do it. And the reason he says is, funnily, actually, he says, if we'd been anywhere else in the world, we might have done it.
Okay, but
we might have done it, but we're not going to do it in Dubai. No. So he was just sort of.
They don't want any of that dirty carry on in Dubai.
No, really, so he was just kind of making a big fuss. And then there's other great bits in it as well, where he's obviously been questioned about the existence of the Super Cartel, and
which I was going to point out. Sorry, as we talk about the sort of the Dutch underworld imploding, the Irish underworld imploding, those two mafia organizations, that there's a sort of a fight for power in them. 2014, there's murders starting in around both groupings. And of course, that's exactly the timeline of the European Super Cartel coming together.
Yeah.
That's when Daniel Kinahan is reaching out to Taghi, is reaching out to Imperiale, is reaching out to El Rico, and they're all, and to the Balkans, of course, to the Eden Gassanen, and they're blending and merging their skill sets to take over, it said, a third of the cocaine market of Europe, but they obviously had visions for the whole lot.
Well, Imperiale doesn't agree with you, because he says, no, we're not really.
We were just chatting.
No, he does say, look, we did help each other out, but we weren't we were friends. He says we were even more than as business associates. We were friends, me and El Rico. And he says, no, we weren't really working together. Now, of course, he did give me 300 kilos of cocaine on one occasion, but that was just helping me out.
As a friend,
I was a bit, So they weren't.
Yeah, he sounds like a bit of a Jonathan Dowdall.
Yeah, so there's a bit of.
We could understand Italian and go listen to him. We could.
Yeah, so I mean, look, that's.
Torture ourselves with that.
But, so what he's saying is, he says, I didn't work with him. He is South American and they needed entrances to Dutch ports and they have their own channels. And he says, I use my own channels. But he says, we didn't work directly, but in 2016, he facilitated me. Like, he gave me 300 kilos of cocaine. But, like, we're not really working together. That's barely worth mentioning, type of thing.
Yeah.
And he also says, which is interesting about El Rico, who came out of prison, I think it's in 2008. He'd served this time in Germany. He came out, he was flat broke. Imperiale says, he had been abandoned by his associates. He didn't have a penny. But by the time he got to Dubai, I don't think they have an exact date, but something around 2015, he had about 100 million in cash, El Rico. So that over that sort of 8-year period, that's what you're talking about. like that's the profit.
That's cocaine
left.
for you, and we're definitely in the wrong business, I can tell you, because in 10 years we wouldn't be anywhere near that. Do you know what I find interesting out of it all? And we're constantly weaving these threads, these pieces of information together from various court cases, from leaked documents, from everything. That is the second indication that Daniel Kinahan is the capo di capi, the boss of bosses.
Yeah.
Because previously, in a bizarre sort of a story that emerged in the Netherlands, which kind of has died down a bit, but no doubt it'll come back up, some lawyers working for Taggy, who was on the run at the time and was wanted in the Netherlands, went to Dubai.
Yeah.
And they were followed by police, and the Dubai police met in they were working undercover with the Dutch, essentially. Now, you're not supposed to follow lawyers.
No.
Lawyers are supposed to be allowed privacy with their clients, no matter who they are. But they did that, and they followed them to a hotel in Dubai, and they believed that they were going to meet the boss of bosses, who the Dutch assumed at that point was Rido and Taggy.
Yeah.
Of course, the police in Dubai almost jumped out and arrested who they believed to be Taggy, but it was in actual fact Daniel Kinahan.
Yeah.
They both had dark hair, and they were, from behind. But it was an interesting point that he was the boss of bosses. So he was the boss of that European Super Cartel. And I had long been told that it was his idea. It was his brainchild as such, even though it had happened before.
Yeah.
In history, in mafias when they come together. But, and he's the last man standing.
The last man left. I mean, and you can hear Imperiale, like, which if you learn anything about gangland from reporting on it, like, they get where they get because they are devious, I suppose, aren't they?
Mm.
And Imperiale sort of addresses that. He says, he's talking about this feud that we've spoken about there, and he says, when I saw that far too many people were dying, I said to myself, now I have to be careful not to get caught in this war. I played doubles. I hung out with Billy, which is obviously British Billy, and Rico, and I kept them both as friends. And then later I would decide who to continue with. And in the end, I continued with Rico and I left Billy. So
because Rico looked as if he was going to be the champion.
Yes, so he was the one that you have to be more afraid of, So yeah, that's the way they go.
So finally, to finish on this, I suppose, we're talking about a Supergrass essentially in Italy in the protection of the police, and he's giving what should be currently private statements about associates of his. Each one of these could have him killed if anybody should so try.
Yeah,
while he's under the protection. So how are we talking about this? How do these leaks occur?
Well, I mean, they occur the same way all leaks occur, I suppose. I suppose when documents and there's police forces over two jurisdictions, it makes a leak more likely rather than less.
Because of the electronic transfer?
No, because that if a journalist gets a hold of it, they can the police forces can blame the others,
Yeah.
So just the more information gets shared.
So once it goes on the move, the chances are that a contact or a source will leak it.
Yes.
Rather than if there's only a small number of people that have it.
Yes, exactly. So we've seen that in the past with extradition papers in particular. They do tend to get out because it'll be moved around a number of jurisdictions. Presumably, even to interview people, there will have to be judicial permission at some point from both sides or one side or the other. And as a part of that, documents have to be filed. I mean, I've no idea where it comes from, obviously in this case. But it just shows you, I suppose,
it's not a hack.
It's not a hack, no. And it's not one of these, a source has said and there's very little information.
These are direct quotes.
They have direct quotes. Yeah. And you can read it and know, like this is certainly that has been said.
Yeah, well, the Dutch were obviously first on the list to talk to Imperiale after he'd given the information about the Italians. No doubt we're on the list there too. And
absolutely, no doubt. And I mean, everybody knows at this point the file has gone to the DPP in relation to Daniel Kinahan. I don't think anybody, I'm sure obviously some people know, but we don't know what's in that. So we don't know if electronic communications or statements of this nature are included in that. We have no idea.
As of yet.
We will.
We will. Okay, Niall, thanks a million.
Thanks, Nicola.
I'm Nicola Tallant and you're watching Crime World, a podcast about criminals, drugs and the underworld in Ireland and across the globe. Make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you can be the first to watch all our latest episodes. You can also listen wherever you get your podcasts.